Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. If you have ever thought to yourself, how the heck can I scale? Am I doing this entrepreneurship, venture correctly? Can I get some help? Can I find out who has walked that path before me and done it right? Maybe I can pick out a few things of what to do, what not to do. Well, you are 100,000% in the right place. We are here with Lloyd Yip, the founder and CEO of Attract and Scale from attractandscale.com. Now, Lloyd helps coaches, consultants, agency owners, and other online entrepreneurs grow their business organically. Now, Lloyd has helped countless entrepreneurs leverage the power of organic marketing to hit multi-six-figure and seven-figure revenues in a highly scalable and predictable way. So if getting off the merry-go-round, the roller coaster, whatever metaphor you want to use, if you would like an end to the chaos and if you would like things to be slightly easier moving forward, then Lloyd is the man of the hour, the person to talk to. Lloyd, glad to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to share a bit more with the audience that has been following you for such a long time. Appreciate it.
Well, and I appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to sending some people your way and getting them hooked and giving them a taste of some of this attract and scale magic. So, what do you have for us? What is on your mind? What's your secret sauce? Tell me some things.
Yeah. Well, you had said a second ago that my focus is on organic marketing. So I think the first topic that maybe we should even touch on is why organic marketing is important, because everyone knows that there's really a lot of different ways that you can scale your business. Paid ads, organic, you really get so many different options. And a big part of being a successful entrepreneur, in my mind, is to understand what things to spend your time on and what things to allow your attention to rest on, because you can't do everything at the same time. The reason why I think organic is really important, especially in 2021, is because there is a lot of additional risks that come about when you're leaning on things like paid. And whether it be iOS changing a lot of its rule set, making things harder to track, whether it be compliance issues causing a lot of people's accounts to shut down with Facebook, whether it be just more market saturation and competition, making your ad dollars achieve less than what it used to 4 or 5 years ago, to have an organic revenue source that is the foundation of your business, where whether or not your paid marketing is working, it'll still just deliver you that $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 per month. That'll keep you safe and allow you to have additional marketing dollars to reinvest back into hiring or into paid ads if that's what you want. It really does allow you a lot more flexibility, freedom, and just safety in your biz. So to me, I think organic is a really, really important foundation that anyone has to have to make sure that their business is sustainable in 2021 and beyond.
And the way you describe it is, I'm thinking in terms of the foundational income, the cushion, that kind of base, the level of income that comes in every month. So that way you can pay the bills, like you said, have that kind of that safety to pay the employees and have a set amount of money that kind of comes in automatically without you having to do much, and you do more and then you can grow that. And so just to make sure we're on the same page, when I don't think I've ever looked up the definition of organic marketing, but just when someone mentions that to me, what comes to mind to me are things like search engine optimization, blog posting, putting up the content, getting ranked on search engines, and then some of ranking on social platforms, being consistent with the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter posts. Are we on the right track here? Is that what you think of when you talk about organic marketing, or is there a special specialty or specific area of organic that you really prefer the most?
That's a really good question. And I will define organic marketing as being essentially any marketing activities that doesn't require you to actually spend in order to achieve that traffic. So it's a bit of a catch-all term. And that's also part of the reason why when people say organic marketing, they usually get a little bit confused. What do you actually mean when you say that? Because it does capture anything from having an organic YouTube channel that just grows and you're able to get clients from that, having a podcast, literally what you're doing right now is organic marketing, or on my end, being featured or guested on other podcasts, having a really active social media presence on LinkedIn or Facebook, SEO. These are all aspects of organic marketing. And for me, I do specialize a bit more on the social aspect I think that SEO and some of those other longer tail strategies do work. But the reason why I think social is really good is because it's much easier to growth hack social media marketing, because there's already an existing community that if you understand how to mess around on each of these respective platforms, you can actually tap into quite easily. So that's really what I can focus on today. That being said, I say that there's a lot of flexibility. I don't want anyone to go and immediately start thinking, all right, I'm going to start a YouTube channel and a TikTok and an Instagram and a Facebook when you're having none of those things right now. Because if you try to bite off more than you can chew, what typically ends up happening is that nothing is effectively done. So there needs to be a focus in the beginning, but then eventually going multi-channel can be super, super profitable for someone who's doing it in the right way.
And the way you describe that, it makes me like in my imagination, there's like the decision to make between going a mile wide and an inch deep, right? Getting registered on all these different platforms and only having time to maybe post once a month versus going a mile deep instead, where you put all your effort into Facebook and maybe some on Instagram. And then if there are other platforms, maybe visit them every now and then. But that's the way that it seems to make the most sense, because it drives me crazy when someone says, well, you need to get on these 30 platforms and set it all up. So if you post to one place, it puts it all on the other. And I think that seems like quite a mess. And then when like you mentioned a moment ago about how like there's like some kind of like crazy things you could do of just like going nuts on one or two platforms. And there's been some, I guess they're outside the box strategies, but they're so simple, right? Like, for example, things like on Facebook, if someone engages with a post in like a group or a page or something, just the little strategy of sending them a direct message or things like that. Or, you know, on social, there's kind of that concept of it's really easy to just pump out the content and keep posting links every day, and then no one engages with those, and then it trains the algorithm to not show that because you're posting all this stuff that no one's even clicking on, versus maybe doing more embedded images, videos, things like that. So that makes a lot of sense to me, to really understand one or two channels and then maybe get to the dominating the world later, versus, like you said, setting up little itty bitty accounts. And so what is maybe your favorite platform, and what kinds of things do you like to do that maybe are untapped by a lot of other business owners out there?
That's a really good question. And what you had said a second ago, those are very astute observations. There is a level of success that you're going to attain by going deep and attaining that real depth with your community that can only be achieved if you actually spend enough effort in that particular channel. So going a mile wide and just going super shallow isn't going to actually get you the raving fans and the tribe that will actually buy the way that you can if you even just focused on one channel and went really deep. And that's actually why I don't necessarily believe that there is one channel that works better than anything else. I do have a channel that I rely on more than anything else, but I have clients that, because their audience is different than mine, I typically don't even recommend them to go on certain channels. For example, if you're going after fitness coaches, people who are like coaching other people how they can improve their health, Instagram makes a lot of sense. You can argue that it's probably the most effective channel for that specific niche. And then there are other channels as well that could be really impactful. Facebook could be really impactful. TikTok could be really impactful. But if you had to rank for that particular audience, it's pretty clear that Instagram would come out on top. Whereas if, let's say, you're going after CEOs of SaaS companies, well, LinkedIn probably makes the most sense there. And then Facebook is pretty good too, but if you had to pick one over the other, you're probably going to spend your time on LinkedIn. The way in which I perceive channels and how I determine if they're a good or a bad fit is that they really have to be able to do a couple things. First and foremost, there needs to be an ability for me to communicate with my audience content that can make a difference, make an impact for them, because that's how we can generate inbound leads, right? And that's pretty standard. But the thing that I think people often forget about when it comes to organic is that organic isn't just content. And in fact, if all we did was create content and then assume that people are just going to knock on our doorsteps, and that's going to be the majority of our demos and sales calls, we're going to be playing a very long, painful game. Because 90% of people who listen to content, even if they love it, they never take the proactive means of DMing you and starting a conversation with you and requesting a demo. Most of the time, it is proactive on the entrepreneur side where we're starting the conversation and we're trying to get them into a sales call or whatever your next step in the call to action is. So to me, a content channel and a social platform that works really well organically not only allows you to share amazing content, but it also allows you to have that direct messaging feature. And you said earlier, something that people often forget is, hey, just DM someone who commented on your post. Well, whether it be Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or even Reddit, I've generated clients from posting on Reddit and then DMing them. If there is like a feature that allows you to have that call, that direct line of sight into a conversation with a prospect, it really, really does help. To me, the analogy is like, let's say you're a single person and you're trying to find a hot date for the weekend. You could just, sit on your hands and assume that because you're a good looking person, people are going to come to you. But let's be real, that doesn't happen all the time. That's inbound marketing. Inbound marketers are too passive. Whereas if you go strictly outbound as well, that's like the door-to-door knocking person, right? That's the guy that hits up every 100 girl that he sees in the bar, and he'll get rejected by 97 of them, but then he'll get a couple of dates because he's just like super volume driven. Ideally, organic marketing at its best combines best of both worlds, right? You have the willingness to approach, but you're also intelligent enough that if that's all you do, that's pretty inefficient. Let's put ourselves in a position where people will on occasion come to us, and if they don't, they're still going to be quite receptive to us going up to them and saying hi.
Nice. And so what I'm getting from this answer here is that there are a lot of things that we don't see happening, right? You see someone with a huge following and you don't see the proactive measures that they're taking. And some of these analogies that we're talking about, I mean, it's reminding me of like the steps that you might take if you are a 9-to-5er and if you're looking for a job, right? In this day and age, if you just post your resume on LinkedIn, post on a job site and say, all right, I'm going to sit back and wait for it to roll in. Well, you might be waiting a long time. You have to go out and apply places. And even, like you mentioned, dating, I mean, maybe like 7-8 years ago, I went on dating sites and read all kinds of articles and did all kinds of research. And it felt a lot like search engine optimization, right? You'd have your profile, you'd have your photo and certain things that you would do. You would want to put certain things on your profile depending on what you wanted and leave other things off. There was like the putting in just the right keywords. There was going and circling back later and then like refining things and updating it for all kinds of reasons, right? Trying out new things, but also appeasing the gods of that platform, that you're the kind of person that logs in and updates things. And then there was the outbound as well of like saying, well, let me do some searches and let me figure out what girls I do want to talk to and which ones I don't want to, and send out messages and just try out different things. And it felt like there were so many parallels to, I mean, you're getting traffic to your website, dating, finding a job. It's like there's a lot of things that there's like kind of like fundamental rules that seem to always or mostly apply. And then depending on a specific platform, like there's like separate, like if you like go down one more step in the hierarchy, there's like certain things that only apply to like LinkedIn or Pinterest, but there's a lot of just like things that apply like all across the board. And so do you see people like just like missing out on things that would be really easy to fix? I mean, like you mentioned, there's that mistake of posting so much content and then that's kind of all they're doing and they're not DMing. But is there something that maybe like we all need to be sitting up and paying attention to, especially these days with some of this organic marketing?
Yeah. And you know what? I'll do better. I'll give you a couple things that people tend to make mistakes on. And I'll even set the context of when people typically make these mistakes. Because depending on where you are in your journey of scaling your business, there is like a different type of most common mistake, so to speak. So of course, if you're just in the beginning, the most common mistake is probably just not doing it, not sharing content, not doing the DMs. Of course, there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it, but you can't optimize to make it better if you're not even doing it to begin with. And I don't want anyone to get analysis by paralysis or overthink. Doing something is better than doing nothing, even if what you're doing isn't fully optimized. Of course, once you are doing it, can you think about, okay, what's the most strategic way in which I can create awesome content that creates resonance? And what's the most effective way to do DMing and outbound messaging so that it's not spammy and it's not overly cringy, because there's a lot of people that are probably losing out on that too. But once you get past those couple initial starting steps, right? And even if all you did was those things, you could probably build a multi-5-figure per month business. I know a lot of my clients followed those exact same steps and got to 20, 30K. That's how I got to 20 to 30K. And it's not very sophisticated, right? Because all you need is to have maybe a little bit of automation, a little bit of content, and a little bit of elbow grease. You can get there. However, the mistake that people make at the next stage, maybe they're at like the 30, 40, even 50K per month mark, is that they are still running what is a fundamentally inefficient sales funnel. And there's really two reasons why this could be. And this is the mistake that I want everyone to be able to take away from this conversation at that level. Either one, the sales cycles are really, really long because your content is at the moment only used for top of the funnel awareness. So when you think about selling something high ticket, right? Let's say it's a couple $1,000s. The reality is at the point where someone comes into your funnel, they're still too cold to be willing to buy your product or even jump on a sales call. So if we were to somehow manage to get them on a sales call right in the early parts of their buying journey, the fact is they're still so much of a stranger to us that it's going to be a very long sales cycle and there's going to be a ton of resistance. They just don't know us that well, right? So what we need to do is not only use content for the purpose of getting people into our funnel and gaining awareness, we need to be utilizing content to indoctrinate people and build the trust. There is this statistic that I saw where it often takes up to 7 hours of people kind of mulling over your content before they're really willing to take a true look at evaluating. So instead of doing all of that mulling over on a sales call and spending way too much time, why don't you just utilize content so that even after someone enters your funnel, you're hitting them with more content, more webinars. Maybe you have a Facebook group that's a community. Maybe you have a podcast and they listen to a couple of episodes of your podcast, all before they get into a sales call. And that way, by the time they're in the sales call, they're already ready to buy. So that is a huge, huge aspect of scaling organic that most people don't think about. It's utilizing content in a way to actually shorten the sales cycle, not just getting the lead at the top of the funnel. But then the second aspect of scaling organic is eventually you can't be the person responsible for managing your appointment setting and content creation and even closing. Because at some point you are going to bottleneck, right? Whether it be, oh man, you know what, like I don't have enough time to write this content, or man, I'm spending too much time in the DM trying to book meetings, or I'm spending too much time doing sales calls. And the thing is, these could be potentially very good problems to have, right? Because you might only have these problems if you do have a lot of sales calls, or if you do have a lot of people DMing you, or if you do have a lot of people asking for more and more and more content. But at some point, if those are your main revenue generating activities and you're throttling on those activities because you're still responsible for all of them, it's not going to allow you to scale. So what I've done for myself, and also what I recommend my clients to do at that 50K to 100K per month level, is let's start offloading things that frankly don't need to be a CEO activity. Meeting setting and appointment booking in email or the DMs, it's an important skill, but it doesn't need to be you. Closing, same thing. It doesn't need to be you in the long run. And yes, content and copywriting is really hard to offload because your voice is your voice, but there's a way that you can learn how to repurpose your content in a very effective and efficient way. There's a way that you can get other copywriters who are just as good as you, who can reflect your voice and manage not just content creation, but content distribution and traffic hacking. There's a lot of things that you can eventually offload, which will enable your organic system to actually run itself. And then you can just kind of sit back and allow your employees and allow your team and some of your automations to really close people from all the way through, right? Generating a lead all the way to closing that lead into a revenue and paying client. Eventually, that doesn't need to be you at all. And that's how you can truly put organic marketing onto autopilot. And that's, to me, what I think is really important about organic at the highest level.
And I think what you described there is, it's really like the dream that I think a lot of people maybe have forgotten that they were at one point heading towards. And it's really easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and the minutia, the technicalities. And I mean, what a cool idea of having your business that markets you and like this thing you're selling, the service you're providing. And then when you feel like going in and injecting your own uniqueness, you can. When you feel like appearing on the podcasts and having fun, you can do what's fun, but then the things that are more like work, like the writing, the content, the closing the sales, like you said, the appointment setting, all of that. I mean, the way that you describe it, it seems silly for you as the business owner to be even thinking about that. It should just happen. And I think that we've all fallen into that. Like we mentioned earlier about that idea of like going a mile wide and an inch deep with your like social platforms. It's easy to do that with your tasks as well, right? To just be like the jack of all trades. And then, well, maybe you can squeeze in 3% of your time on a podcast appearance. Maybe you can squeeze 2% of your time of thinking of new YouTube video ideas. Well, it would make a lot more sense if 90% of your time was being on video or being on podcast interviews. It seems like that's a way to just like get the energy back, get the focus back. And I mean, this has been on my mind quite a bit lately, Lloyd, is just that whole idea of having the team do it, but then keeping your own uniqueness, and things like maybe have them look back at your old content, or maybe you go and make quick edits. And I mean, I'm sure just like you look at these people that do a really great job at like all the content marketing. Like, I hate mentioning Grant Cardone because it's just a cliche, but like you see him doing like a show every day, like a live stream, but then there'll be a LinkedIn post that's, 10 pages, and he didn't write that. He just was on video, on camera. Someone who probably watched hundreds of hours of his content, watched the live stream that day, picked out a few ideas, made it sound like him, refined it a lot. I mean, that seems like quite the goal for a lot of people to achieve. And it makes a lot of sense. So where do you come in? I mean, we've thrown a lot of ideas about things that people should be thinking about and doing. So if they have been taking some of these actions that we're talking about, like you said, doing something is better than doing nothing. At least then you have some raw materials to then like amplify what you're doing. Where does attract and scale come in here? Where should people be stuck at in order to need you, and how can you get people unstuck?
Yeah, thank you for asking me that, Robert. And the reality is, we help clients from all different stages. Like yesterday, I was interviewing a couple clients in my program, in my mastermind, and they've all already like surpassed 100K per month mark. But I still have some clients that are pretty early on. So I can give you the entire life cycle of the problems that we solve. At the earliest stage, the problems that we help clients solve is even just channel selection. They don't know what channel to use. And this is a hard problem, right? And it's funny, like podcasts are simultaneously the best thing that's ever happened to marketers, because you learn so much for free, but it's also the worst thing because now people know too much and it's like overwhelming. They don't know what to do. A big part of what my team and I does is we help people to learn how to parse information and ignore the stuff that frankly wouldn't be the biggest needle mover. And that includes like, okay, this is the audience that I really should be going after, let's laser in. And also, this is a channel that makes sense for me. Let's ignore everything else until we get to a level that we can justify spending additional resources on that extra channel, right? And that's always the earliest stages, channel selection. And then of course, single channel strategy. Once you are, let's say, deciding on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, how do you actually use it? Because it's not as though you can just say, all right, I'm going to make an Instagram account and it just starts to work and generate clients. There's a really specific way in which each of these platforms behave, and they're different. There's a way in which you can actually do outbound or content marketing or community building that's different across all these channels. So how do you actually go and execute and monetize each of these channels so that you're not just getting ignored on your DMs or posting content that no one actually cares about, right? And then once you can actually learn how to solve a single channel, and you can do this in what at the time will still be kind of a manual way, eventually you want to start automating and delegating things, because if you can learn how to automate and delegate, it allows you to go multi-channel. So this simultaneously removes you as a CEO from that particular channel, which will free up a ton of time. It's going to actually make your sales process more efficient. You're going to generate more leads, more interest, more sales. And with that additional time, you can start building projects on other channels, which will then multiply your business horizontally, right? So we work with clients at each and every single one of these stages, whether it be, okay, I got to hire a sales team because we have a ton of leads coming in from LinkedIn and Facebook. We don't know how to deal with them. That's a problem that I could potentially help someone solve. But then all the way down to, all right, we just need to figure out our channel. All right, it's Facebook. Okay, how do we make Facebook groups work? how do we make Facebook DMing work? How do we make outbound messaging on Facebook work? So those are different problems, but just within the general life cycle of making organic marketing work at scale, wherever you are, we can be of service. So that is, more or less what it is that we're trying to help our clients with. And hopefully this was like an educational and informative, couple minutes, people listening to me there.
Well, yeah, and you said a lot of context there as far as like, I mean, people right now are listening to the podcast or watching it, and it's like, well, why are you doing that? Well, you're doing that because you're looking to move your business forward and solve some problems, but it's really easy to maybe go off on the wrong track, or maybe like be solving the wrong problem or not knowing what problem that you're solving, right? It's really, I mean, there's only so much time in the day, and it's easy to replicate your mistakes. It's easy to say like, well, I need to be marketing on Instagram. Well, why is that? Are you doing the right thing? Are you putting in enough juice in there? Are you doing too much of it yourself and you're not hiring people to do it for you? I mean, it's really easy to get completely overwhelmed, but like you said, like people are listening to a podcast, and especially on this topic, because they're looking to be pointed somewhat in the right direction, but it's not going to be like exactly personalized for them. So this is a good way right now if people are listening to kind of get an idea of the landscape and kind of know what they should do to start. But as far as actually getting somewhere, getting on a path to a goal, they need to be maybe taking the next step. They need to be talking to you, but it's always good to kind of sample the menu, right? Get a little bit of a taste. And that's what this is. And so if people say, well, okay, a lot of this makes sense. I know that I need to be taking my organic traffic seriously this year, and that there's so many things that I should be ignoring. Like 95% of what's out there should not be doing, but there's 5% of something that if I just get a handle on these handful of tasks, then I can really kind of have the snowball effect that you described, where if things work, then you can hire someone to run things, and then that way that makes money, and then you can hire someone to go and move over onto this platform, and that makes money, and then that way it frees up time and money in the budget to maybe automate some things, so it kind of gets better and better. So for things to be kind of on this upward spiral, where should they go, and how do they get some of this personalization? How do they get you on a call? Or I hope someone on your team, right? Because they're talking about delegating and all of that. So how do we talk to someone from Attract and Scale and figure out if what you provide is right for them, and some next steps here?
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to share a bit more about my business, Robert. And there's a couple of different ways. The first way actually is just filling out this online quiz that I've built, and it will actually tell you where you are in terms of your organic growth. Are you still very early on where you don't have much sophistication built out, where you're still doing everything yourself? Or are you someone who's already built out a team and you're doing multi-channel marketing and et cetera, et cetera? But the cool thing about this quiz is it'll actually just ask you a couple questions. You can finish it in literally a few minutes, and it'll give you a customized report. And that's why I think this is a really interesting asset, because it's fully unique and tailored to you based off of where you are in your business. And it's going to give you recommendations which are actually relevant to your business, instead of just giving you some sort of canned generic one-off strategy. That's what I'm always about. Like, it's the reason why I do one-on-one coaching for the most part. And it's the reason why whenever I create content, I try to contextualize it so that it's relevant to you and the fact that your business is unique, like a fingerprint. So if you want to go check that out, it'll give you a very, very educational and interesting report. And if you actually just want to talk to me or my team directly, you can do that as well. I will provide a link so that you guys can book a call directly through Robert's page links. And if you just want, an additional asset, maybe check out a really, really dense piece of content that'll give you more on the actual technical side of organic marketing. Obviously, today it was a bit more high level. I didn't go into the specific tools that I use. I didn't go into the copy that I write, the campaigns that I have, how I've set up some automations and systems. I do have a half an hour webinar that goes super deep into just technical organic marketing. And if you're just a nerd like me and you just want to learn about the actual day-to-day stuff, you can also check that out. So there's a lot of different options. But for sure, join my community. I have a community of 3,500 people on Facebook. Other marketers, SaaS founders, agency owners, coaches, consultants, online business owners. And we are always just geeking out about organic marketing. I do interviews there, master classes, everything's for free. So if you want to check that out and just be in our community, please do. I'll send you the link there as well. And that's pretty much it. People have many options they can choose from as to how they want to stay engaged. Totally up to them.
Fantastic. And that's just how the world is right now, right? It used to be you would turn on the TV and there might be maybe like 20 or 30 channels and you would flip through and maybe find something, but you were stuck with what was on right then and there. And if you missed it, you missed it. But nowadays there's on demand, there's Netflix, there's Hulu, and the same I think is true on the internet and in business. There's so many choices out there so that you can get dialed into exactly what you want, when you want it. And so lots of different choices, but like we've been saying, it's also easy to get lost in the shuffle. So it's important that people take action right now and decide, well, do you want to watch that half an hour webinar? Do you want to take that quiz? And so, like you said, Lloyd, we'll have the links to that. But just in case someone happens to be like listening on the phone or on a walk or in their car or something, is there a quick link we can drop just in case they can't get to those links?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked. So the link to the quiz is attractandscale.com/organic. So really, really simple. Attract and scale is spelt the way that you would assume it's spelt. And so is organic. That is the slug. So attractandscale.com/organic, and that will bring you to the quiz. Everything else, a little bit of a longer URL. So I'll make sure that that's in the show notes and people can consume it at their time.
Well, fantastic. So attractandscale.com/organic. And one thing as we're wrapping up, winding down is it's always good to have those reminders about of the basics and kind of seeing what you've built and hearing about your thought process here. There's that reminder of that, like people are at different levels of awareness, right? That some, like you mentioned things about like long funnels, and sometimes people are just researching, just dipping their toe in the water. And sometimes things like the podcast where you talk about high level strategies are good, or sometimes even taking the quiz is good to figure out like what to focus on. And then you said like, then there's things like, if I just want to know the nuts and bolts, the technical details, then there's things like a half an hour webinar. So I think even just that alone of seeing how you work, I think even just that is helpful because it's easy to get stuck and say, well, organic content, that sounds good, but like, what do I even, blog about, make videos about? And even just that concept alone, that there are some people that they don't even know they have a problem. There are some people that they know that they want to solve this, but they're not sure about solutions. Maybe they know the solution, but they need to be convinced about your solution. Maybe they know about your solution, but there's like something technical or they have like something really specific. Well, if we think of in those terms, there's like unlimited ideas for content, unlimited ideas for social posting, because there are different people at different levels of hurt. And like you've been mentioning, is that by having organic content, we can really kind of optimize our time, because it's really tempting to say, I'll take a phone call with anyone, right? I'll one-on-one sell anyone. And you might talk to 100 people and you're talking to all the wrong people. But if you have a funnel, if you have traffic, if you have organic content, you can take those 100 people and maybe narrow down the 3 or 4 people worth talking to who automatically get to know you better, and it kind of tees up things for you. And I mean, you only have to take 3 calls then, and they're really easy and they're all ready to go. And like you said, then eventually you hire someone else to do all that. So a lot of the work is being done for you. So you out there in podcast land, if you want more of the work to be done for you, if you want things to be easier, grow faster, more strategic, just less of a headache in general, go to attractandscale.com/organic to take that quiz. We will see you there. And as we say goodbye right now, Lloyd, as we wrap up, wind down, are there any lasting thoughts that you want to share with us? Any final, like 1 or 2 sentences that if that really stuck with us, that would be so helpful to us in our businesses? Anything come to mind? 1 or 2 sentences of some parting words?
Yeah, for sure. And I will say this. I have been on the podcast binge for years, even before I became a real entrepreneur. I've been listening to different podcasts, Pat Flynn's, like everyone's podcast I've been listening to for 5, if not more years before I had ever started my business. And the reason why is because I was just a chronic content consumer, but I didn't implement. So regardless of which podcaster you're listening to or which episode you're listening to, actually implement, right? Because I was referencing this earlier. The biggest danger of podcasts is that it allows people to feel like they're being productive, even though they're not, right? Just listening to a podcast doesn't really mean anything unless you go and apply the things that you're learning. It doesn't need to be the stuff that I'm teaching necessarily either. It can be someone else's. But go and actually listen to a podcast and then apply that same day or the day after. Make usage of the content and the information that you're learning, because otherwise it's just information that will eventually disappear into thin air, right? So that's what I have to say. Seize the moment, trust the process, execute, implement, because that's what actually generates results at the end of the day.